She just wanna work and pay her bills. Fuck up on a man, keep it real.
That's right.
She just want her girls to know the deal.
They do.
She just told her boss just how she feel.
Fuck you.
She just hit the club up on a Thursday. Told the bartender I ain't feeling thirsty. Took a couple shots just like it's her birthday. Hit the tree.
What's good, y'all, and welcome back to another amazing episode of We Don't Sip Tea, We Drink Wine. Now, I'm your host, Miss JLH, and I have Judi here with us from Mannequin Madness out in California. I'm so excited to be talking to you. Can you just let the people know who you are, where you're from, and exactly where in California your business is located?
Sure. I'm Judi Henderson. I'm located in Oakland, California, but my business is in e-commerce, so I ship all over the U.S. And right now is 8 o'clock in the morning, California time, but I'm so happy to be here on a Saturday, no less.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about Mannequin Madness. What is Mannequin Madness, and how did you get started?
And it kind of like how the name of it is, Mannequin Madness, is a little bit crazy. It's a bit of this, bit of that, bit of that. But the bulk of our business is that we resell mannequins. We're the only Black-owned mannequin company in the country, if not in the world. So a big part of our business is when department stores close or remodel, they used to just throw their unwanted mannequins in a landfill, which is not good from an environmental standpoint because mannequins are made out of materials that don't break down. So I offer to recycle their mannequins for free, which save them money because it costs money to throw something that big away. Think about the big bins you need to have. But also it was better from an environmental standpoint.
Yeah.
So a portion of our business are used mannequins that we resell. A portion is reselling new mannequins that I get from drop shippers. And then we also encourage people to use mannequin parts for various art projects. On our website, we show a whole range of creative ways that mannequins are a canvas for a lot of DIY projects. And the last thing we do, well, we also rent mannequins. Anything related to mannequins we do. Let me just say that. We rent, we sell, we recycle, we blog about them. And we started offering flower crown headdress classes, sort of like paint and sip, where people come in, they use a mannequin head to create a flower crown to be able to wear for, parties, events, costumes. So it started with just one thing, and we've just added on from there.
Yeah, I saw all the various uses for mannequins. I was like, oh my gosh, who knew?
Who knew? Even I didn't know.
Yeah, so amazing. So really, what made you want to get into this work?
Well, you know how sometimes you become an accidental entrepreneur? When I started in 2000, this was like in the dark ages, right? This was pre-internet, pre-Facebook, Instagram, any of that kind of stuff. And it was before the term girl boss became a thing.
Yeah.
But I was working at a .com, because being in the Bay Area, there's a lot of .com. And I was around all these serial entrepreneurs, and they were all younger than me, white men who had started businesses that had failed, businesses that lost money, but they still felt so confident in their skills as an entrepreneur. I had not been exposed to business owners outside of maybe my hairdresser. That's the only Black person I personally knew who ran a business. So this was a very new thing for me. Why I'm so happy to talk about this now, because there was not the representation when I started. So I just knew I wanted to do something, but I certainly didn't know it was going to be mannequins.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking a business class at a nonprofit that helps underrepresented people learn entrepreneurial skill sets. And even then, when I finished the class, I think it was like, I don't know, 2 months, I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted something. You just have like a gut feeling. One day, Jasmine, I was searching on Craigslist for some Tina Turner concert tickets. Very significant.
On Craigslist.
Looking for the tickets, I saw someone was selling a mannequin. And I had always wanted a mannequin just as an art project. I had no idea this was going to change my life. I went to see the guy, and he ran the only mannequin rental company in town, and he was leaving the state and filling his inventory. And I said, who rents a mannequin? I didn't know that people would rent a mannequin. When he started telling me all the reasons why people would rent a mannequin, I thought, you know what? I'm going to give this a try. So I bought, I think he had 50 mannequins. I certainly was still going to be a part-time side. This was a side hustle because I didn't know what I was doing. And he had promised to provide me his client list,
Mm-hmm.
but he had everything packed up because he was literally moving.
Wow.
Jasmine, I never got his client list.
Oh my God.
He dropped those mannequins off at my house, which at that time was sitting in my living room. Never heard from him. So there I was, no prior experience with mannequins, no client list. This was back when you used to advertise in the yellow pages. I don't know if your audience is old enough to know what the yellow pages were.
Yes.
I missed the deadline to be in the yellow pages, so it was going to be a year later before I could get in there.
Oh my
I was
God.
like, exactly. That's what I was like. What have I done?
I didn't know there was a deadline to get in there. Thanks for saying that.
Because they got to print it out. They have to print it out, so they need time to be able to do all that stuff. It's not like instantaneous now, It's so much better now.
Totally
Fortunately,
forgot.
at the time, my ex-husband was very supportive about the business.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would think, what are you going to do with 50 mannequins sitting in your living room?
Right.
And what I did, Jasmine, is I went the old-fashioned way. I went to every department store in the Bay Area and introduced myself. Because I knew if someone wanted to rent a mannequin, they would probably call the local department store, Macy's or Nordstrom's.
Right.
And they don't rent mannequins.
Right.
So they would start referring their customers to me. That's how it got started. Very random,
Wow.
very unplanned, but very tenacious. I will say if the one skill that I have is tenacity.
Right.
Now, let me just add this, Jasmine. I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No,
get this out.
You're doing great. I love it.
Is that I was doing the part-time, still working full-time at a .com for about 9 months. And the business was, fledgling. It was, you're not going to make a lot of money in a year, right? But I could see the potential. But then 9/11 happened. And 9/11 was almost like 2020, a real game changer in our society.
Yeah.
And I lost my job at the .com. And I remember thinking then, even though this is a fearful time, I'm going to be more fearless. Because if indeed we're at our last days in time, I want to be doing something that I enjoy and not look for another job. So I almost needed that push, though. I want to say that, sometimes when people see me now, they feel like I was always an entrepreneur. And I want to just say it can be an acquired skill. Because I was afraid to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Once again, I had no representation. This is a weird industry. That's why I called it Mannequin Madness, because I thought maybe I'm a little crazy for doing this.
Yeah.
But that little push, and sometimes pushes can be good to get you out of your comfort zone. And then I just went into straight hustle mode. And that's why I ended up adding so many other features. Because I couldn't make enough money just renting mannequins. So then I had to start selling them. Then I had to start shipping them out of state. All those things were process.
Yeah, and for a Black person in fashion or retail period, it's so hard for us. It's
totally
so hard to get.
Now that's the beauty about the internet, because especially in the early days of the internet, you didn't know what my nationality was, and that was by design.
And your name works well for
totally.
Never know.
One of the first big customers we got was Prada, and Prada from in Italy called us.
I know that's
because
right, Judi.
We had some mannequins on the website that we'd got from a Ralph Lauren store that were no longer in production, and they wanted them. Now, I knew if they probably had any idea that they were buying from a Black woman whose mannequins at the time were in her backyard in Oakland, they would not have done that. And I just embraced technology very early. Partly I worked at a .com, so I was comfortable, especially for someone in my age group. I'm 67 right now. I'm loving ChatGPT right now. I think it's so important to stay on top of technology.
Oh, you're amazing.
So the internet allowed me to be, no one knew my age, my race, or even where I was located. Now, over time, I changed that, but I was very gradual. Of course, during the George Floyd days, I made sure everybody knew Black-owned business, because you wouldn't normally assume Mannequin Madness is.
Absolutely.
Now that the DEI is kind of out of favor, I kind of downplay it. So, you gotta shift it. Doesn't mean you don't have to not be your authentic self, but sometimes there's times to really broadcast it. Other times you want to put it more behind the scenes. Okay.
Do you feel a type of way for having to downplay it and shift a little bit?
Of course I do. Of course I do. I hate it.
Yeah.
And initially when I got into the business, a lot of the people who, there's not that many women who do this. And most of the time when they are, they're part of a couple. And a lot of the mannequin buyers and collectors are white men, and sometimes they're gay white men who you would think would be a little bit more supportive.
Right.
But sometimes they were so envious that I was getting access to all these mannequins, even though I didn't come up in the industry. Part of it is that they're just very close. Like, oh, you weren't a window dresser? Oh, you didn't work in retail? Well, who are you? And they were shocked that I was coming along and getting these great big customers. So some of it is just, I think, the normal jealousy that sometimes people have when a newcomer comes in. And then, yeah, some of it, it's difficult, as we know, being a Black woman. But hey, at least I don't have to deal with the regular microaggressions that you do on a daily basis. It just may pop up every once in a while. And I love it that if someone is a real jerk, I just choose not to do business with them. It ain't that important to me.
Yeah.
Recently, when I noticed on my posting on my Facebook page, if some people were pro-Trump supporters, I blocked them from my page. It's like, in 2016, I was okay taking their money. But after this time, I was like, I don't even want to deal with you.
I love that, Judi. Do you feel like it's super important to stand on morals and values, especially as a Black business owner? Because a lot of times we do go straight from that.
Totally. Now, a big part of our values, though, are universal. We believe in sustainability. We believe in recycling. We believe in circular economy. So we really, really announce those things much more than talking about a social justice.
Right.
But in reality, many times landfills are located near minority communities. So on one level, the fact that I'm helping to reduce mannequins from going into the landfill, I even received an award from the Environmental Protection Agency for keeping over 100,000 pounds of mannequins out of landfills in 1 year. In 1 year. And I feel like that's a way in which I can contribute to the greater community, both Black and the bigger community, right?
Absolutely.
We like to say we make the world a little greener, one dummy at a time.
I love that. Because a lot of people don't realize how much environment affects us mentally, emotionally, physically.
Right. Physically, all
and
those things.
So
exactly.
Often minority communities do get the rougher end of having bad environments around them. We talk about, certain places like Haiti and various other Caribbean nations, but
just right
here in the United States, it's really bad.
It's really bad. And so, we really want to make a dent in that. And so another advantage of the internet is that when I started working with national retailers, say like the Gap, and they had mannequins they were getting rid of, say, in Indiana, because they were remodeling their stores. It didn't make sense for me to go to Indiana, obviously, and get the mannequins.
Right.
What I started doing was partnering with other used mannequin companies. And it's a small industry. We all know each other. It's a cottage industry. And what I would do is I would contact them, beauty of the internet, people I never met. Once again, they didn't know my nationality. I said, hey, I got this deal with the Gap. Would you like to go get these mannequins? And they paid me a brokerage fee for the privilege of getting them. So everybody won. Gap got their mannequins recycled. I made a little money on the deal. The other people were able to resell them. And it was effortless. Gap started calling me and other national retailers started calling me because I was a one-stop shop. They could call me and I would get their mannequins recycled anywhere in the US and even Canada at the time. Now, things have changed. As you know, retail is imploding right now. Yeah. I think now it's harder for me than even 2020 was.
Really?
And
so
that was hard.
Honestly was my next question, because I just saw an article that retail had a little rough time due to the weather, but I don't think it's completely due to that.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, online shopping in the Bay Area, we have a lot of stores that have closed because people have moved out of the area because they can take their technology salaries and work remotely in cheaper places. And so we don't have the same influx of people coming into downtowns on a regular basis. I'm in Oakland. We've had a big crime wave. So there are a lot of things that are impacting retail. Cost of things, even before this tariff thing. Things are expensive. So I thought 2020 was hard because we had to be shut down for several months because we weren't an essential business.
Wow.
And California was very strict, unlike some other places, with closing things down. And I guess I just want to say that's one of the things about being an entrepreneur. You got to have something to weather your storms, because just when I thought like 2008 was tough, when we had this really, bad downturn in the economy and the real estate market turned down, I was like, woo, that's a hard one. Then by the time you get your sea legs back, you're feeling good. Then 2020 came along.
Yeah.
And you're trying to recover from that. And now it's like, what's happening now? It's like, whoo.
It's like
It ain't
another
for the faint. It's
whirlwind.
not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
ain't for the faint of
how
heart.
are you getting over this hump of this new administration and just all these new changes? And it is different. It's super.
They're
Even the
different.
internet is super different now.
Totally. Well, part of it is really, as Black women, we have to really prioritize our self-care. As we're talking right now, Jasmine, I am on a walking treadmill
Yes.
because I needed something to help reduce stress. And since I'm on the computer a lot trying to hustle something, I said, at least let me do something that helps me to relax. I also am a very strong person of faith. I've been a Buddhist for 30 years. And I remember one time I met a banker once at a conference, and I don't even know how this conversation came up, but he said that he found that people who had strong religious belief, didn't matter what it was, the people who had a strong religious belief tended to be more successful and lasted longer than other people.
Wow.
Now, why would a banker tell me that? And I don't even know how he even knew that. When you go in to apply for a loan, you are usually talking about your faith, but apparently it must have come up. And that was, he must have told me about 15 years ago. And I definitely get it. Like sometimes you do need to tap into something bigger than yourself. On a consistent basis, not just when it's a storm, to really help you go it through. And I said, once again, it doesn't matter what that faith is. And I know that's one thing that's helped me get through.
Yeah.
This is a tough one now because, I've never had to prioritize my self-care in the same way that I've done it now. Because normally, people who come to buy mannequins, they're happy. It's not like I'm a roofer, right? If you're repairing roofs, nobody wants to see you because that means shit, something's wrong with my roof and I'm going to spend a lot of money.
Right.
People are artsy, they're creative, they're fun, they're surprised that they even found a place that they can walk into if they're in the Bay Area. So on my daily basis, my customers make me happy. You get a jerk every now and then, but in general, it's still fun. And I love when I get new mannequins in.
Yeah.
But this was the first time with all that's happening in the world that I have to really, really not only worry about the business, but like worry about my self-care.
Yeah.
Because and then a lot of my business is on the internet, so I want to try to avoid some of the stuff that I see. Even though I avoid the news, you can't help but see something come through on your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed. So that's why I would say self-care are most important because, jobs, businesses can come and go, but you got to take care of you first.
Absolutely. And I love the point that you made about religion because I've always felt myself that it's important to believe in something, even whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
It's something, because it's so hard to navigate this life just not believing in anything.
And I want to say something that uplifts you, though. Because sometimes people do a religion and it's more fear-based and maybe they just will grow up with it. I'm saying be open to exploring what that spirituality looks like for you and something that you can do on a regular basis. And that's what I'm saying. Be open. The same person who was a devout Catholic may find that, all of a sudden now I like believing in witchcraft or something like that. I'm not sure that's a religion, but I'm just saying it has to be something that feeds your soul, not something that you're going to feel fearful about. Because the church that I was raised in with my mom was a lot more fear-based, and that you have to wait to heaven before you see your reward. I'm like, I need shit to help me right now. Tomorrow morning.
Because I love that you said that you're Buddhist. As a Black person, and you don't see a lot of Black people that are into
Tina
Buddhism.
Turner.
I know,
Tina
right?
Turner. She's my girl.
She's the one that I think of too. But typically, you don't see us in that realm a lot. You do see us just more so in Christianity or something of that nature. But I have noticed that Black people are moving out of that space lately and going to other realms of spirituality. So what do you think that shift is about?
Well, I think sometimes it's just a matter of exposure, right? I mean, now we know about Tina Turner. We've seen her success. We've seen that she still talks about she was still tied into her Baptist church. So I think a lot of it, just like with more Black people becoming entrepreneurs, when you have more exposure, more likely to take a chance for number one. Number two, I think just in general, there's been a shift across the country where people are looking at other alternatives to religion, because when we see some of these people who quote unquote say they're Christians and they're doing these things that are totally anti-Christian, it does make you question, like, what is this, And particularly if someone, I'm in the creative field, so I meet a lot of people who are non-traditional lifestyles, whether they're sexual orientation or whether or not they've changed genders. all that kind of stuff, they already have to start thinking outside of the box, right? In order to find some support. So I think we just have the opportunities that we didn't have before. Just like self-care. Back in the day when my mom was growing up, when they definitely needed some mental health, there was no such thing. You just pulled yourself up by the bootstraps and kept on going, right?
Absolutely.
Now, all you younger people are all about, oh, my feelings and transparency and my mental health. You know, I'm kind of exaggerating, but I do love that now there's been a shift and people really see mental health as a priority. And I think we, as Black people, need it more than anybody. So I think the change in spirituality is part of that same renaissance, so to speak. Like, okay, I can think differently. I don't have to be what my grandmama or my mom showed me. Yes, there may be certain traditions and values that they did, but sometimes you've got, just like a computer, you got to reboot every now and then, download some new software because the old stuff doesn't work. That's the way I feel about with religion. Some of that old stuff does not work now. And we have to be open to finding that.
I love that because I mean, how do you love that shift? You know, you did grow up in a different era where things were a little different. You didn't talk about things, you know, you didn't share certain things. You know, it's really different now. So
really, and much needed. I think it's very refreshing. Very refreshing.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and I probably would not have started my business without therapy. I told you I was married at the time. We were living together at the time, which was something that, once again, that was a big deal back in the day. Of course, it's no big deal now to live with someone, to have a baby before you're married. All these things. Because I'm a Southern girl. I was raised by a Southern woman. So we have very traditional
same.
But my ex and I were going through marital challenges, so we went to couples counseling, which initially I was kind of hesitant about that. Once again, we're talking about 2000s, you know, still a long time ago, 20 years ago. But during the process of doing couples therapy, it uncovered some other things that allowed me to trust myself to be an entrepreneur.
Wow.
So I definitely feel that any kind of therapy with the right therapist, because we shopped around. The first therapist wasn't, well, you know, I'm going to say not all therapists are equal, just like any kind of thing that you buy, right? Therapy itself is good, but you have to find the right connection. And sometimes that connection may look very different than who it is. Our first therapist was African-American male. And we just, which was hard to find, and we just didn't gel. We ended up going with this white woman who was originally from the Midwest in Wisconsin, where you hardly see any Black people, right? But she had spent 2 years in the Peace Corps in Africa. And so she had a very different sort of worldview. Let me just say that. And I just like, you know, there's different types of modalities with therapists too. And we liked her mentality. And so we ended up staying with her. So, but that would not have been my first choice, put it that way. I was looking for someone who looked like me or whatever. And I'm thinking, sometimes you need someone outside of the box sometimes too. It's tough. Because sometimes you want someone who can relate. But sometimes when someone comes from a different perspective, they can give you a different perspective. Because sometimes we're so sucked into what we've always seen or done or experienced, you don't even realize, oh, you mean there's a different way that I can look at this?
No, yeah, that's so true, because my therapist, I mean, I was very specific. I definitely wanted a Black woman, but she practiced Judaism. And I was like, yeah, this is interesting. And I had skipped her at first, but then I was like, no, this is interesting. I'm going to go back to this.
Yeah, there you go. I think you intuitively kind of know, you know? Even though it may initially feel a little outside of your comfort zone. Just like when I first went to buy the mannequins, it was totally outside of my comfort. Even when I went to see the guy, he had mannequins all thrown around his warehouse, all dismembered and stuff. You talk about looking creepy. It looked creepy. His warehouse was all dark. Something definitely felt uncomfortable, but still my gut is one of those aha moments, as Oprah said.
Right, just go with it.
You can do this. You can do this. And I make sure my warehouse is very light. We got a lot of sunlight. It's airy. It's cheery. I mean, some people may still feel it's a little creepy because you see all these mannequins lined up, but the general vibe is much more uplifting than where his was.
Right. So what's your advice for, especially for older entrepreneurs who especially those who are fearful of the internet and social media and going with the times? What advice can you give them?
Ooh, I just say the internet is where technology is where it's at.
Isn't
sure.
it? It's getting bigger and better.
Yeah, and then I tell you, I'm in love with ChatGPT. That's like my new boyfriend now. As much as I like to write, because I was a journalism major,
Oh
I
my
find
gosh,
ChatGPT.
Judi! I'm a communication major. I went to school for PR and marketing.
We got to have an offline conversation.
Yes.
What I was going to say, I find that ChatGPT, even for someone like myself who likes to write, uses it as a great resource for generating headline ideas or just different topics. It helped me with my blog. My blog. And also I revamped my website using some AI features on it. I love it. I just feel like technology is something to be embraced. Everything, of course, has its plus and minus, right? Like I tell people, look at a syringe, a medical syringe. It can be used to inject medicine or it can be used to inject heroin. The syringe itself is neutral. It's how you use it. With technology,
you better preach, Judi. I think I needed that. Because, I've been like shying away from AI, to be honest. I really haven't used it as much as I could. And I've started dipping and dabbling in it a little bit to help me with my creative process. But yeah, I've been kind of not wanting to break into it.
It's coming, baby. Yeah. I tell people it's coming, whether you want to embrace it or not.
Yeah,
it's already here. It's just a matter of how you can use it to either be aware of what some of the pitfalls are. Just sort of like I said, the internet can be used to scam people. Yeah. How many people have been scammed either on a catfish, on dating, or having their funds taken because of the internet? That's a negative way. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the internet gave rise to the Black Lives Matter movement, right?
You're so right.
Everyone saw what happened to George Floyd. We would not have seen that if we were looking at regular TV. Mm-hmm. Or what's the other girl? Breonna Taylor. Once we were able to, and Black Twitter was critical in getting a lot of information out for Black people, by Black people that had not been there. That was using technology.
That's so true.
So I just think it's here. It's almost like when back in the days when we were using horses and then cars came out. Right? Yeah. A lot of people were like, oh, cars are terrible. They're pollution and they're going to mess up the highways. People have car accidents. People are more killed in a car than they would have been killed if they fell off of a horse, right?
Yeah.
But it's common. So sometimes you gotta roll with it, right?
Wow.
I mean, there's certainly some aspects that are not appealing, but that's just life in general. There's some things that aren't appealing. Think about if you're married, there's some things about your partner that ain't appealing.
Yeah.
But it's here. You're going to say, okay, because I don't like the way you do this, I'm going to kick you out.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, where are you seeing Mannequin Madness for 2025? What are some major goals that you have?
Oh, God. Jesus. No, I can still say Jesus even though I'm a Buddhist. Because I'm just been wrestling with that. Because right now, Jasmine, we're kind of between a rock and a hard spot. The city of Oakland is in a very, very state of decline.
Wow.
And as a result, we do not get the foot traffic we used to have. There used to be a restaurant across the street from us. It's closed. It brought in a lot of traffic.
That's
so on one hand, I really cannot stay where I am physically because it just has a negative vibe. And there's one community over that is much more prosperous, that is very artist friendly. I've met some of the city government officials there, and they want us to come there.
Okay.
We haven't found a spot, and number two, it's going to be expensive to move. So I'm really chanting for the wisdom on what's the right way to go, because it's almost like I can't afford to move, and I can't afford to stay where I am.
Right.
So trying to figure that out is part of it. The other thing is that I told you that we have these flower crown classes, which is sort of like paint and sip, Instead of making art for the wall, you make art on your hair, and we use faux flowers so that you can continue to wear your headdress. At first, we wanted people to come to our warehouse to do this. But since Oakland has a bad reputation, particularly for people who aren't Black, we had to create a mobile version. And so while it's a little bit more work for us, it's allowed us to reach people who would never come to Oakland. We've done team building for companies like Google and Airbnb. We've done county fairs. We've done libraries. That's the new direction I see us going to because, number one, it allows us to reach a different audience. Remember, mannequins are a limited use. Not that many people have a need for a mannequin.
Right.
But there's a lot of reasons why people will do an arts and craft thing.
Absolutely.
Maybe they just want arts and craft just for the sake of doing arts and craft. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're going to a wedding. Maybe they're going to a costume party. So they want to use something like that, particularly using it from a therapeutic standpoint, because everyone has been told now that making something by hand is very useful from a therapeutic standpoint. So that's the direction I'm going. I say you always have to kind of like shift your messaging.
Pivot,
So
yes.
at one point, I was a home-based business. So I touted that. Then when we moved to a warehouse, it's like, okay, I'm no longer a home-based business. I'm a one-of-a-kind green business. So sometimes you just change the messaging, whatever's
just
current.
A little pivot, yeah.
Sustainability became the new term. It was the same thing as recycling, but now it's like sustainability. So I kind of feel like with the arts and crafts, now the term is self-care, where before we were concerned about DEI, like, oh, let's do some things to kind of like target different demographics. Like when they had the Black Employees Association, they would bring a Black business in like myself to do a class for that. Well, now the DEI is kind of on the down low. I have to say, okay, let's talk about we're a self-care activity for everybody. So sometimes it's just doing the same thing, but you changing the messaging. And that's where AI can be helpful.
Absolutely.
AI has been very helpful in giving me some new verbiage about flower crowns that didn't sound so, I want to say, before I think I wasn't whimsical and light enough about it.
Right.
When ChatGPT is kind of neutral, and then you can keep asking it different ways to say it.
Yeah.
Tweak this, tweak that, and it's like, oh my God, it became into a whole new thing.
That's right. Give us the jewels, Judi.
I should buy stock in ChatGPT. I'm
really
excited about using it. And then I need to use it more. And on a website for sometimes standardized answers about some things, AI can generate some of those kind of things. So yeah, I like it. So, and I'm also looking to, normally we've been blogging, but I realized we may need to be on a platform like Substack or Medium. So once again, it's the same thing. I'm still writing, but where do I use to get the message out? And
I feel you, Judi. We can talk. We can chat it up. I have some ideas.
Okay. Love to. And that's the beauty of doing things like this. And that's why I always try to say yes when someone asks me to share. First of all, because I want to show people what is possible. Here I had no experience in business, no experience in mannequins, no experience in retail. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I did do was leverage my strength. I had experience in technology. And back in the day, I was one of the early adopters in the mannequin industry to have an online platform for my range of business. Granted, some of the bigger manufacturers were different, but the people who were kind of like at my level were very slow to embrace technology. They were very slow to look at mannequins in other ways besides just displaying clothing. I realized, I don't know if you've seen the dress form Christmas tree trend.
Yes,
Have you looked on Pinterest? So
I've been wanting to do it forever.
Okay. We adopted that very early, created tutorials to show people how to make it. But a lot of my other people were still not thinking about mannequins as a DIY kind of thing.
Yeah.
The internet, particularly Pinterest, started giving us an opportunity to not only see what other people do with mannequins, but for us to put it out there as well. So I forgot I was making a point. It was something about, just, always being able to adapt. And I think that's where it goes back to having a strong faith. Because it takes a lot of energy to make these changes, right?
Absolutely.
As soon as I was comfortable with like one platform, then here's another platform. It doesn't mean that every platform is for you, but it's at least to be open for it. That was another thing. I saw some of my competitors in this town who did not have an online shopping presence back in the day. They went out of business.
That's a big thing too. Do you have a should you have a website? How much should you have an online presence type of thing?
I wouldn't be in business without a website. There's not enough local business to support my business.
Understood.
But
let's
what
talk
that
a
means,
little bit about Oakland, because what is actually going on in the area for the area to be at such a decline?
Well, it's a combination of things. We had some bad leadership. In fact, our mayor was recently indicted by the FBI.
Wow.
COVID hit us really hard in terms of many times, you don't have the same access to resources. And so when you are shut down from getting income and you don't have, family to back you up, that creates more despair. So we had a lot of despair financially. And then I think also mentally, because COVID was, a horrible time. One time we went in a real lockdown here in California.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people just didn't know how to handle that mentally. And many times we as Black people didn't have access to mental health care or don't believe in mental health care. So it wasn't just one issue, it was a bunch of issues. And then with so many of the places being shut down, that meant then that many of the small businesses were struggling for customers, right? And then when customers would come, they found that they were victims of smash and grabs, or the car were broken into. So they just said, "Ooh, I'm just gonna, you know, not frequent those places," or they may just order online. And if you're at a restaurant, people don't spend as much money if they're ordering it to go, right?
Yeah.
You want people coming in where they're going to buy wine or dessert, this and that, whatever. Right. So it's just a range of things. And San Francisco is struggling too. I mean, but because San Francisco is San Francisco, Oakland has always lived in San Francisco's shadow, so that's made it a little bit harder. But even down, I'm going to Bloomingdale's later on today and getting some mannequins from there because Bloomingdale's is closing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Now that location, I'm not saying they're closing in New York, but just in general, retail is just.
They already did in New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I know Macy's has closed a lot of stores, and we're talking about big people with deep pockets. They're closing. So on one hand, I have to say, well, I'm still here. Okay, remember, Joanne Fabrics is closing stores. So it is a scary time. Yeah, they're closing, I think, more than half of their stores. I don't know where people, and that's a really unique business. Where people love find Joanne's. I know. Big Lots, what is that, Dollar Tree or one of those 99-cent stores. So it is definitely an upheaval time.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why you've got to find ways to adjust. That's why I go back to self-care, because if I just continue to look at the news reports, what Trump is doing, what the retail's doing, I would not want to get out of bed in the morning. Okay.
I know it's a stressful time. I keep looking, and I'm like, you have to keep yourself informed, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Yes, exactly.
I just want to know what I can do.
As we as Black people, we've always, like I said, made a way how to know way, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think if nothing else, we have more resources now than our ancestors did to make a way. We have community now, where before our ancestors many times were like, didn't have the ability to talk to someone cross country to see if what you're going through, or to stay in contact with someone. So then we have to marshal the resources that we do have now, and build on the strength of our ancestors. My parents are 95. My mom just died last September. They rode COVID out so smoothly because they had lived through Jim Crow South. COVID was nothing to them. Everybody else is freaking out. My parents were chill. They had their home, plenty of space, food brought to them. It was like, I'm not saying it wasn't stress, you know what I mean? But it's like, when you're like an old oak tree with deep roots, you can weather any storm. Doesn't mean you like it.
Absolutely.
I'm saying that. But you can weather it. And that's kind of what I'm going through right now. I mean, this is really tough because there's so many areas I'm being hit. It's not just financially. It's like not really much faith in my government. My city is in decline. It's like there's several areas that are a lot harder. Or before, it just might have been one area.
Yeah.
But because I've withstood some of the storms, I don't feel like I'm collapsing. I may be finding it hard, but I'm not collapsing. And once again, I said, I find out what's the self-care. That's what I said. I'm on the treadmill. I do a little bit more chanting in the morning. I connect with people a little bit more often. And, I don't listen to the news. I've got to find whatever that self-care is. I watch a lot more comedy now.
I know that's right. Me too.
Kind of girl.
Me neither. Oh my gosh.
Yes. I need some more Black joy, more laughter kind of
stuff. Love, stuff like that. Because I really like horror and thriller a lot. I don't know what's wrong with me.
No, it's nothing much wrong with you. It's what brings you joy. I love costume parties, costume events.
Me too.
I love going to those things. Like some of my friends think, "Oh, what you doing?" It brings me joy.
I know that's right.
It brings me joy, and not hurt nobody.
Yes, doing things that you love, self-care, all those things. Yes, thank you for that, Judi. We need those jewels. So, where do you see Oakland? Like, what's your advice for the city, or what would you like the city to be? Where would you like it to be?
I want to move. Sometimes you realize this ain't my battle to fight. Yeah. It's like how a lot of Black women are saying, look, we did our part. We voted. Y'all didn't go with the vote. So you take care of it from here. Don't ask me to be on the front line again, helping out, marching this and that, whatever. I'm just going to sit this one out. And that's not to say you want to be defeated, but sometimes you have to realize some battles are just not yours to fight, or you need to rest. and then you can come back battling. Right now, the Oakland requires more than what I have to give. Now, I still live in Oakland, so I'm going to be certainly concerned on one level. But I feel like for my business, it will be better served being in this other town over called Emeryville. I'm trying to move over there. And it's only like, I don't know, maybe 5 miles difference. I mean, it's not like moving across the bridge. It's just right next door.
Yeah.
But, some things have a different vibe. And let me go back to my girl, Tina Turner. And sometimes we have to be okay about moving. Before she really blew up, she had moved to London. And her recorded her album. She always had a much greater reception to her in Europe than in the U.S. because the U.S. was still trying to label her, you're a Black artist, so you can only play these kind of venues and only on these kind of radio stations. Europe, particularly London, was much more open about signs. Okay, so she moved there, then came back, and then ultimately when she retired, she moved to Switzerland.
Yeah.
Now I realize we don't all have the option to move abroad. But sometimes your immediate neighborhood may be toxic.
Yeah.
And you might have to find a way and continue to try to make this work. Sometimes you have to move, whether it's moving to another neighborhood, one town over, whether it's moving out of state, whether it's moving how you're marketing your business. I think sometimes you have to realize, you know what, this just is not working for me. And that's where I go back to faith. Because sometimes you have to know, when is it, am I giving up too soon versus when is it, this is not my battle to fight. I went through that with my own husband. We went through couples therapy for a long time. In my mind, when you married, you stay married. My parents were married 68 years. That was my model of being married. But I realized it wasn't working for me. I felt like I was on a Titanic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a chance and jump on that lifeboat versus stay on this sinking ship.
Absolutely.
Now, I was not looking forward to being a woman in my 50s and single and dating apps, weren't things. But sometimes you got to be willing to move to get something bigger. As they say, a closed fist can't let anything else in.
Absolutely. You can't stop yourself from growing and bettering yourself and reaching for higher goals. You have to know when you've grown out of certain spaces. And I'm glad that you've realized that, because a lot of times people from your generation tend to just stay in certain spaces for longer than they need to.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's like, that doesn't serve you or them. I figured, even though I'm 60, I could have another 30 years because, like I said, my parents were in their 90s. If back in the day when you only lived to 65, you may stay someplace if you were in your 60s. It's like, I only want to have another 5 years, but I maybe have another 30 years.
I know that's right.
20. So it's like, what do I want to be doing during that time?
Living for myself. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because I figure if I get my business stronger, then I would have more to give back to Oakland. But right now, I'm being attacked on too many fronts. And I don't have the bandwidth in, and I put my time in. It's like sometimes you gotta pass the baton to somebody younger.
And I feel that, and I love that, Judi. I think it's important to know when it's time to fight and when it's time to rest. And this is your time to rest and self-care and focus on you and your business. And I love that. So you're just pivoting, and it's good to pivot, and that's really great advice because I think a lot of us could use that more these days.
I'm not saying it's easy. Like, everyone's talking about the Super Bowl performance of Kendrick Lamar. Okay, let's just do a quick sidebar, right? Many times, many of the boomers didn't get it. Okay, younger people thought, oh, this is the greatest Super Bowl performance ever.
It gave me life. Okay.
Oh my God! And see, I'm the old boomer. It's like, oh, what the hell? Like, I want to be entertained. I want some glitter. I want some songs I can sing along to.
That was my best friend, and she's in her 40s. I was like, you're embarrassing me right now. Please stop.
Okay. But you see, sometimes it is a shift, right? We're used to a certain kind of thing for the Super Bowl, and now there's a new generation coming along. Now, sometimes we got to find the happy medium, right? Because most of the time, your generation would be at a Kendrick Lamar concert, and I wouldn't even go there, right? But now that we're in a venue where we're both are seeing that, how can we coexist and still be supportive? I like that the earlier halftime or earlier entertainment had what I'm used to, the Southern marching bands and dancing girls. So at least they kind of had something for everybody. But the bigger point is, there is a shift. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, the shift is coming. Now, next time I know if Kendrick Lamar is performing, I may choose to then take a commercial break when that comes off.
I know
That ain't me.
Yeah.
But other times I might, after I heard more about what the messaging was, I was like, oh, I get it. That was very powerful. That was very risk-taking that he did that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to do that at a Super Bowl. It's like, I'm not trying to get an education at the Super Bowl. I want to be entertained.
I respect it, Judi, and I love it. I love it. I do.
But I just want to let you know, as much as I want to be modern in some ways, there are all those times in which I go back to being, I'm 67, and so I'm going to stand my ground on this one. I may like AI, but when I go to the Super Bowl, I ain't AI friendly. I want some of my traditional kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
I know that's
but the
right.
Is, look at this. We can laugh at it. That's the beautiful thing. I think sometimes when people are resistant to change, they don't even want to hear another perspective.
Right.
I mean, I really read a lot of articles about what was he saying.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what the whole feud was between him and Drake. I didn't get the Serena reference. I mean, some of that shit just went way over my head at the time.
I feel that. Yeah.
Fortunately, I had younger people around me who would explain stuff, and then I did some more research socially and online. And this has really changed my opinion, but I'm not such a hard stance about it.
I feel that. And I really love that you came on and talked about this, because I definitely just had a show about the whole Super Bowl performance, and we talked about all the subliminal messaging, how much we loved it. Like, we just loved it down. We loved it. So it's just funny to hear your perspective. I love your perspective. Stand 10 toes.
And this is what I mean when you say about what am I going to do about Oakland. I feel like I need some Kendrick Lamar energy type people to help change Oakland.
I agree.
Versus me coming with my same attitudes from the past are not going to help some of the changes that we need right now.
We definitely need a newer generation out here fighting these fights now.
But there's still got to be a way we can be intergenerational, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to feel like, okay, I'm hands off. Y'all take care of it. I'm out of here.
Right.
How can we kind of collectively bring each other's strengths together? Not unlike when Google first got started, they brought in older staff people to help manage the company. Now, the young people were good at using technology and coming with ideas, but what's involved in creating a structure, they had no experience with that. So they had to bring in more older, seasoned people to help with that.
Agreed. And I really wanted to talk to you, not just because I thought your business was so interesting and amazing and unique, but because I think it's just so important for us to bridge the gap between older generations and our younger generations. Stop talking to each other. I mean, I didn't, because I love talking to everyone, and I just like to get to know everybody. Because you're a communications person. Yeah.
You're a communications person. So you have a natural curiosity.
Yeah, I do. Right. And so, but I do see that the gap has closed a little bit between getting to know our elders and, what we could do better, or just, it's like we just started doing things on our own and thinking that's the right way and the only way. And it's kind of frustrating because
it is.
Not.
Part of it, that's once again part of the downside of technology, right? People have gotten more comfortable talking to a device than talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's easier just to leave a quick one line about something versus really do some investigating and understanding it.
Yeah.
So that's like I said, there's always a plus and a minus. On one hand, the internet has given us a broad reach, but I think we've lost some of the intimacy and closeness that we had before. I even find myself sometimes, I'm too busy looking on my phone or some stuff versus just put the phone down and look at what's right around me kind of thing.
Judi, and I started doing that after 2020, especially during 2020, but I started doing that a little bit before. But especially during 2020, I just stopped having my phone all the time, especially when I'm out and about and with people, especially. I just try to be as present as possible in the moment. I don't even take pictures of.
Have you noticed a difference since you've done that?
Yes.
Have you noticed
and I noticed my people doing it too. I love that. Or I make them do it.
Well, I think with anything, there's always a pendulum. I'm trying to adjust my sweater here. Yeah. A pendulum shift, right? Mm-hmm. Now the technology is almost taken over our lives. Some people are realizing, you know what? Let's pendulum back. Not unlike, TikTok came along because people were sick of the perfect images on Instagram, right? Instagram was like everything had to be perfect lighting, perfect filters, this and that, whatever. TikTok came along. It's much more raw kind of thing.
That makes sense. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Not well. You don't have to be all filtered down and stuff on TikTok.
That's
They're
true.
more forgiving.
Even
of
though they
mistakes. So I
are.
think, yeah, but I mean, but less so than Instagram. Put it that way,
I feel you. I feel you.
So, but I think, so now just sometimes just things kind of swing, and that's once again you got to be able to deal with the swings.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're coming faster and harder now than they did before.
Right.
More instantaneous. Before you had a while to kind of settle in before something else changed. Now it's like shit. As soon as I get used to this, it's like something else.
That's so true. So I do want to ask you, what do you see for the future of sustainability, recycling? Like, what do you see for that for 2025? Because with this administration, high key, they don't really think it's a thing. And, we ain't got to really worry about, I guess, anything.
Yeah, I know nothing but them lining their own pockets. Well, unfortunately, I feel once again living in California, which is a blue state, and I'm in a blue city.
Right.
It's a little bit different than what it might be in other places.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that people here are still very concerned about sustainability. Sometimes not just from the environmental standpoint, but just from a sense of just waste. It's just wasteful to get rid of certain kind of things. So, and before this administration, I definitely did see more of an upswing of people wanting to recycle than when I first got started. I used to have to beg stores to recycle their mannequins. And most of the time, they only were interested because I was saving them money. They didn't really care so much about the environmental standpoint. It's like, oh, it's cheaper for me to give my mannequins to you than to call a waste disposal company and to bring the dump bins to bring it. I'll go with that. And then I saw the shift where people really were concerned about reducing their footprint, their environmental footprint.
But what does it matter? Even if it doesn't, even if they don't care, like, why just not do it? Like, what does it matter?
I know, it is. Well, now that younger people, like say yourself, are taking leadership roles, they're more likely to look at sustainability. They're more likely to go on the internet to see, is there an option? Before, once again, this is part of the old way of thinking. Before, retailers thought that mannequins were just for displaying clothes. So if a mannequin was broken or damaged, they think, who's going to want that? Because you can't display clothes on it. Now, other people are saying, once again, with things like Pinterest, no, look at what you can do with a broken mannequin. So sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And once you get more awareness, you're likely to make some different choices.
I definitely didn't know all the different uses you can have with mannequins. And what are some ways that you use mannequins? I would definitely love you to talk about that a little bit.
There are so many. I mean, we could just do a whole subject on this, right? And I would love to show some examples. I mean, my favorite is the dress room Christmas trees because I love Christmas, and it's a truly sustainable way to celebrate having a tree. The bottom part of it is like a regular tree, and the top is more fashion-oriented. And then after the holidays are over, you can then use your dress form to display clothing or jewelry, or change it up to do a different display for Valentine's or whatever. So you can't do that with a traditional tree. So that has been probably my number one thing I love to see people do with a dress form tree. And also it doesn't take up a lot of space. It just takes up vertical space.
Yeah.
People make lamps. They make tables. They put them in their garden. A lot of people use parts for Halloween. Out here, people who go to Burning Man, they're always looking for, mannequin parts for creepy kind of things like that. I'm trying to think. Mosaic, decoupage, almost every kind of medium imaginable. People will put it because people are fascinated with the human body, so the human body is a beautiful canvas for so many different types of projects. So someone here likes mosaic.
It's been that way too.
Yeah, always has been. I mean, the downside for me is that I have to then sell individually versus to an individual crafter, which is true. Before I could sell 10 mannequins to one vendor.
Understood.
One seller. So there's that. Instead of 10 individuals, but once again, being able to pivot and realize that. So if we have some mannequins that were broken, we were thinking, well, what can we do with these? We have a zero waste policy ourselves. So we don't throw anything away. Even mannequin hands are popular. People will put it in their house for different kind of a soap dispenser or things like that.
Oh my gosh, okay.
If anyone is interested, they just go to my website and look under a section I have called Create. And I show DIY projects with mannequins. And
this is fire, Judi.
Cupcake stands. I don't know if you've maybe seen where the top of is a dress form and then it flares out. and people put cupcakes on like the skirt part of it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm amazed at what people's creativity is. I mean, I use Pinterest as a good starting point because that's where I get ideas. Then I'll do a deeper dive from there. Now I've been using AI to help show people. I put in on AI, how do I make I think a mannequin lamp? Or how do I turn mannequin legs to a mailbox? And AI came back with, how-tos kind of stuff. I'm
my God.
Look at this. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I like I said, it's two things. It's sustainability. People like the creative process of figuring something out. We find particularly for younger people who many times are tired of mass-produced stuff, they want something that's more unique. That's why some of the malls are suffering. People don't want to look like everybody else. They really go to this consignment store or this vintage store and get something that's unique and one of a kind and has some history to it. And so I'm finding the same thing with some of the DIY projects. People are like, and we try to have a range so that it's easy. We realize not everybody's going to be able to do mosaic tiles on a mannequin. But maybe you might want to do something that's a little simpler, drape it with some material to kind of get a different look. Or, paint on it. Because paint is a lot simpler than trying to do something more detailed. So we like the DIY parts with mannequins. Like I said, it serves a lot of purposes. It's healthy for you, healthy for the environment, and it creates something one of a kind.
I love it, Judi. Thank you so much. This was such an informative and amazing conversation.
It's been so much fun chatting.
Yes, absolutely.
And talking to someone younger, it's like, if I would do anything to anyone, I say, talk to someone who's at a different age than you. You're younger, seek out someone older, and vice versa. And just have a conversation.
Absolutely. You never know what you can learn. And I love it so much. I learned so much in this conversation. I loved it.
Well, I definitely want to have an offline with you, Jasmine. We'll do a continued follow-up.
We are staying in touch, Judi. Now, just let the people know where they can find you, how they can get in touch with you, and all of that good stuff.
Okay. Well, if you remember Mannequin Madness, you can find us everywhere. Our website, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We're not on Twitter. And we're not on TikTok. Just remember Mannequin Madness, and we'll be very easy to find. All the emails come to me directly, so I'll be responding. And I'd love to see you.
All right, Judi. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank my audience so much for tuning in to another amazing episode of We Don't Sip Tea, We Drink Wine. I'll see y'all next time. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. Peace.
She just wanna work and pay her bills. Fuck up on a man who keep it real.
That's right.
She just want her girls to know the deal.
They do.
She just told her boss just how she feel.
Fuck you.
She just hit the club up on a Thursday. Told the bartender I ain't feeling thirsty. Took a couple shots just